Hi to you all. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Cyber defense during time of this crisis and after is a good topic to discuss. And we all need to admit that like an experienced nation state grade attacker, this COVID-19 virus is more sophisticated, more persistent, and more dangerous that we have all anticipated only 4 or 5 months ago. So in that light, I hope you're all safe and healthy. Now, as much as it is hard to imagine, this young guy with the black full hair is myself 30 years ago when I was the head of the special forces in Israel. A few years later, as a general, I have actually started the first cyber program in Israel, which was by far the first cyber program attack and defense all over the world. Now, I was the head of this very powerful division, but I was very, very worried because I was trying to think what will happen 2, 5, 10 years down the road. So I gathered the leadership of my unit in an isolated place next to Jerusalem for 2 weeks for brainstorming, and probably the most important outcome of this brainstorming was this cyber attack and defense program. Now we are talking about 95 when internet was mainly in universities and mobile phone was for rich people. But we thought then that moving to mobility and moving to the IP protocol would create many opportunities within the intelligence space, but we also thought that in the future, nation states would attack each other not only by missiles, but also by attacking critical infrastructure. And in order to be able to defend ourselves, we need to know how to attack as well. Now, at that time, there was a furious opposition to this program. People said this young general probably lost his mind, wasting money on science fiction and things that would never happen. But today, this is the reality of our days. And one of the reasons Israel is much better protected than the rest of the world is because we have started many, many years before anybody else. So long before this COVID-19 took place, there was a huge change in the world, in the cyber world, and actually in the world itself, about 6, 7 years ago. All these organizations and many others were hacked and hit very, very badly. And the interesting part was that all of them felt as if they are very, very well protected a moment before they found out about the attack. And they had good reason to think so, because they prudently complied with the legal compliance. They ran all the best practices. They had the usual suspects defending them, yet they were hurt very, very badly. And the reason for that is that the balance that was for many years between attackers and defenders was totally broken. Attackers became much, much more aggressive, sophisticated, and bold, and defenders could not react properly. Now, from the attacker side, it is mainly due to those 3 reasons. So the first reason is trivial. Cyber attacks are very, very profitable and involve almost no personal risk. Now, in the past, if you wanted to make the difference, you had to invest $1, $2, $10 billion at least. When we are talking about cyber, the investment is totally different in terms of money. The second reason is that today's hackers are using nation-state-owned tools that was leaked to the darknet. So every 12-year-old hacker can go to the darknet, pay $300, and buy an equivalent to a nuclear submarine and take a bank down. And more than that, if I want to take each one of you, I don't have to buy this tool. I can buy it very easily as a service. Now, those are screenshots from the darknet itself. So as you can see here, it is very easy to use, very friendly. You can buy any program you want. You want silver program, you want diamond program, you want bronze program. You have a help desk, you have a tax deduction. Everything is very easy, but not legal. And the third reason is that for many years, there was some kind of a gentleman understanding or agreement that nation states would attack nation states and hackers attack banks. No more. Behind most of the 2 years last big attack, it is done by hackers, but it is heavily backed, supported, guided, and in many cases, even instructed by nation states. So the hacker enjoying the money, and the nation state, and we're talking about Russia, North Korea, China, these are the three big, but also Iran, Syria, and others, enjoying the mess in the Western world. As we said, defenders could not react properly. And this is mainly because huge shortage of trained manpower all over the world. But the real challenge is that there is an understanding today that the only way to deal with this level of sophistication and aggressiveness from the attacker is if you can think like the attacker. And the only efficient way to think like the attacker is if you have an attacker background yourself. Now, in the Western world, it is either impossible in most of the world or very, very expensive in the US, in the UK, to get a person with good attacker background. Because the NSA and CIA and FBI and MI5 and MI6, I know those units are good units. I know personally, I have many friends there, but they are very efficient organizations. They hire the people at the age of 24, right after university, and most of them go all the way to retirement. So the few ones that are living between are very, very, very expensive, and no defender could afford them. The only exception to that in the Western world, in Israel, not because people in Israel are more clever, but because of the system. You know, in Israel, joining the military is mandatory. So every year, 130,000 boys and girls are joining the military, out of which the military have the privilege to pick the brightest 1,000, walk them through extremely intensive cyber and technology courses that are equivalent to 6-7 years in the university. But more importantly, right after those courses, those geniuses are taking part in mission-critical, state-of-the-art, hands-on, most sophisticated in the world defense, but mainly attack mission, as I said, for about 10 years. But by the age of 30, 96% of them would leave to the private market. Because the Israeli NSA and CIA, the A200, Mossad, Shabak, my unit, they don't need so many people. They have a fresh flow of 1,000 people every year. The first 3 years, they don't have to pay them because service is mandatory. And then they need only 3-4% to become generals and colonels like myself. So actually the system allows an annual constant flow of 1,000 world-class cyber experts to the private market. Now, those experts are much better educated, much more sophisticated, much more creative They're the worst hackers of the world, yet they're excellent people. They know how to work in groups. They're very disciplined. They are pre-screened, wonderful people. My son is one of them, and you can imagine how proud I am. And Israel is a small market. So this is the theme that we are having, and this is a very huge differentiator from the rest of the world. So this is Israel. So what we have learned so far, and I'm quoting actually from the DoD, the NSA, the CIA, the MI5, but also McKinsey, Cisco, Checkpoint, and others report. What we know now that today, anyone, anytime, anywhere is a potential target for a nation-state grade attack. Now, let's go back to this current COVID-19 crisis. Now, we are talking about a huge crisis, no doubt about that. It is a global huge crisis, but the enemy is external. So one could expect the world to be united. Share forces, share information, try to solve this crisis together. Unfortunately, what we see is the other way around. Apart from the medical community, countries are blaming each other by not sharing information. Conspiracy stories are all over. And we all know from the past and from today, the geopolitical tension is the best accelerator for more and more an increasing number of nation-state grade attacks, and this is what we see now. Now, apart from that, we need to expect that new players are going to join the party and actually joining as you speak. I just read a fascinating article at the New York Post describing the local mafia that actually lost most or almost all of its income sources and is desperately looking now for new sources of income. And what is more immediate, what is more profitable than cybercrime? Now, from my experience as an attacker, I can share with you that the older trick in the book is take advantage when the defender's mind is elsewhere. Now, it happened in the past when the Bangladesh bank was hacked by $1 billion during the Chinese New Year, and it happened in the Democratic Committee that was attacked in the 4th of July. So this is very well-known trick. But here we are talking about totally different magnitudes. You know, in a matter of days, people have to work from home. Almost 100% of the personnel need to move to work from home. Back-end professionals are far from the core. On-prem have become off-prem. Zoom and the likes are excellent targets for attacker, and everything was changed. So no wonder phishing is on a very sharp rise. So what was true today is even more true today during this COVID-19 crisis. Today, even more than before, anyone, anywhere, anytime is a target for a nation-state grade attack. Now, no wonder CISOs all over the world, and we hear it days and nights from our clients, are very, very worried because they have external challenges, because they know that, and they need to assume that a successful attack was already launched on their network. And they know the geopolitical tension is a good indication for more and more nation-state grade attacks. But they also have some internal things to worry about. because they need to deal with all this mess, with reduced budget and smaller internal teams. So, have we lost the war? Not at all. Let's talk now about the ways to prevail, the ways to be able to build a right defense. So the right approach is built by 5 main elements. Each one of us needs to make sure that his trusted advisor, his cyber trusted advisor, his cyber defender would have those 5 elements. First of all, the right team, then the right methodology. He needs to make sure he adopted an holistic approach. He has good access to the darknet, intelligence, and automation. Let's just have a few words about each of these 5 elements. Now, team is probably the most important one. And let me share with you a story. I have a good friend that he was one of the top people in the NSA for many years, and he moved to the private sector. And he joined, during a few years, 2 out of the 4 of the big 4 board. Now, when we arrived to the US, I talked to him a few times, and when he became very familiar with us, he told me, you know, Ran, in our companies, we have roughly the same pitch as you have. We are talking about nation state attackers and defense from the attacker point of view. But frankly, we have very good marketing people, but professionally, we have nothing behind it, unlike you. Now, you're all familiar with pen testers that they have 2 years of experience and they declare that they have nation state attacker background. Now, when I'm talking about team of experts, I'm talking about things that is totally different. I'm talking about hands-on, world-class cyber experts, and better if they are ex-intelligence agency attackers, either in Israel or in the US or in the UK. The second element is the methodology. Your defenders need to be able to think like an attacker. In holistic cyber, we call it OFM, Offensive Framework Methodology. This allows us not only to constantly attack our own work, but more importantly, this allows us to wisely prioritize, to take calculated risk. Because apart from the client business, apart from the client vulnerability and the client risk appetite, we add to that the attacker purpose. We add to that the attacker point of view. So this allows us to prioritize because we know what is probable today, what is probable only a year from today, and what's probable only 10 years from today. We also know what would frighten the attacker, what would exhaust the attacker, what would make the attacker go to the other path. So our report to the client is totally different than most of the competition reports. Instead of 100 vulnerabilities, we actually offer him a defense plan, which is very, very practical. And we can do that because we have people that understand and familiar personally with the attacker. So this is the methodology. The third element is the holistic approach. So you need to make sure that your defender have adopted an holistic approach, dealing with your business processes, allowing you to protect your critical assets, defend what matters, but also dealing with the most 2 important areas, which are supply chain and your personnel, your HR, your people. The next element, you need to make sure that your defenders have the right access to darknet intelligence so he knows what is relevant for you. And the last one is trivial proprietary technology that allows your defenders to be more efficient. Automation, automation, automation. Now, the right approach, the principles are very, almost painfully simple. Defend what matters. Prioritize. Take calculated risk, because there is no such thing as zero risk. And if you are not willing to take risk, you are actually taking larger risk. Be practical. Advance defense technology in order to be more efficient, and take a holistic approach. Not defend only the IT system, but the entire ecosystem. These are not slogans. This is a call for action for each one of us. So you need to remember, as the one that's responsible for the cybersecurity of your organization, that if you do not prioritize, if you do not willing or daring to take calculated risk, you are creating a much bigger risk to your organization. Because trying to defend everything is as if you are defending nothing. Let me finish with the story, the famous story about the bear in Alaska. So Tim and John went camping in Alaska. Morning came, they came out of their tent, and then they saw a huge, furious female male running in them. So John said, Tim, can you pass me the running shoes? And Tim said, what do you need the running shoes for? The bear will outrun you anyway. So John said, I don't have to outrun the bear. I have to outrun you. You know, in the cyberspace, we're in the same place exactly. You need not to be fully protected because there is no such thing. You need to be better protected than your friends, better protected than the industry. Then the attacker would go to the other bank. You need not outrun the bear. You need to outrun your friend. Thank you very, very much.